Next bill is House Bill 743 by Representative Carpenter. Provides relative to absentee voting by mail, voting by qualified incarcerated voters, absentee voting following registration by mail.
Rep. Carpenter on your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill simply allows, gotcha. This bill simply allows, oh, we have an amendment.
Let's go ahead and take up the amendment, Madam Clerk.
Representative Carpenter offers up Amendment Set 3270.
Rep. Carpenter on your amendment.
Thank you. The amendment merely allows, was prepared with the support of the Louisiana Sheriff's Association in conjunction with what they thought was best to put it in better posture. And so what it does is that it says an officer may witness more than one certificate rather than doing them one at a time. And the other part of it is they may deliver more than one rather than delivering one here, one here, one here. And the other part is that it has to be done by the U.S. Postal Service. So,
Any questions on the amendment? Any objections to the adoption of the amendment? Rep. Thomas, can you come speak on your objection?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm very well versed in election law, and one of the things in election law is that you can only deliver if you're not a family member, first removed family member. That's not the correct phrase. But if you're not a close family member, you can deliver more than one ballot. If you're not a family member, you can deliver one and only one ballot. This amendment seeks to change that law, and I object to it.
Rep. Carpenter, you have a right to close.
I'm well versed in the election law too. That's why I'm bringing the bill. There's nothing to say that this cannot be done. This was prepared with the support of the Louisiana Sheriff's Association, and they're fine with what it does in the penal system.
Rep. Carpenter, will you take any questions on closing? Rep. Carpenter, will you take any questions on closing?
I will.
Okay, Rep. Boyer for a question.
Representative Carpenter, based on the testimony Representative Thomas just gave about only allowing one signature, when the election officer in the parish receives the ballots, how would they know that it's a correction officer? Is there a process where they would be identified as a correction officer? I understand it seems to be to cover, from a liability standpoint, the deputies in the prison, but as far as the election officer, they wouldn't have. Would they have any idea who's a warden or a deputy at the prison?
I'm sorry, would they have any idea if it's
How would the election officer in the Register of Voters office or the Clerk of Court's office know that it's that it's a person with corrections that is the witness?
Well, they're in the penal system, so that person has to be the witness there, and it goes straight to the Postal Service.
Okay, so it goes to the Postal Service and then it arrives at the Register of Voters office. How would that Register of Voter know that the witness is an employee of the correctional facility?
Well, I'm sure they have the names of the people who are there.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And it's sealed.
Rep. Marcel for a question on closing.
Thank you, Representative Carpenter, for bringing this bill.
Thank you.
Am I correct to remember the testimony on this particular bill that the correctional officers were in support of your bill? Is that accurate?
Absolutely.
So they did not have any problem with giving the ballots to the prisoners who had not been convicted of anything but did have the right to vote. Is that accurate?
Absolutely. They're qualified and they're registered.
In fact, some of them said that they were doing this. Is that accurate?
Yes,
I thought so. So this will clear it up so that these are people who have not been convicted of anything.
Have
They're
not.
registered to vote, first time voting, and can mail that ballot. It will go to the mailroom like any other mail, correct?
exactly.
Like any other mail.
Like any other mail, if you were military, well,
And
whatever.
And we do want people to vote. Would you agree?
I would think so.
I would think so also. Yeah, I think you have a great bill.
And there were no red cards on this bill, by
And
the
I
way.
was getting ready to say that. And I didn't see any objections to your bill from anyone in the audience.
None.
I will say that. And I thank you for bringing it, and I think you have a great bill.
Okay, we're on an amendment. Rep. Bagley for a question on the amendment.
Yes. Yes, sir.
The author of the amendment is on closing. Rep. Bagley?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative, you said, I think, and I want to be sure, that the Sheriff's Association prompted you to make this amendment.
Yes,
So the Sheriff's Association is in support of this bill,
yes, they helped to draft this amendment.
and they're in favor of this bill. You're
Yes.
743. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Rep. Newell for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And Representative Bagley made the point I was going to ask, that this amendment was drafted by the Sheriff's Association. Am I correct?
Yes.
Because the amendment was delivered to the committee by a representative from the Sheriff's Association. Am I correct?
Absolutely.
And so I'm not understanding what the problem is, because it's allowing for an exception to proposed law that allows for the officers in the correctional facility to be able to drop more than one mail-in ballot in the mail at the correctional facility. Am I correct? It's just exempting them from that.
Rather than doing it one at a time.
Right, because we don't have that many correctional officers in one place to do one at a time.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Representative Carpenter, for your explanation of your amendment. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you.
Okay, Rep. Thomas, you have a question on the amendment?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Carpenter, my computer tells me that this is a House floor amendment, that it was not delivered to the committee. Is that correct?
This was prepared for the House, yes.
That's not the question I asked. The question I asked was,
Or, yes,
this was prepared for the floor.
yes.
Did we get a floor note from the sheriffs saying that they prepared this and approve of it?
I don't know what you got, ma'am. But you can look on your desk and see if you got it.
Okay, well, the answer is we did not get one. And when I spoke, is it correct that Mr. Renatza, who represents the Sheriff's Association, was not present at the committee hearing? Is that correct?
I don't know whether he was or not.
Did he speak?
Well, you were in the committee hearing. I don't know whether he did.
I was in the committee hearing, and I know that he did not speak, but I'm supposed to ask you a question. Did you know that I actually called him after that to ask him if the sheriffs had taken a position?
And, yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. And
Okay, and did you know what his answer was?
I don't know.
Okay, his answer was that they were neutral.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr.
So,
Speaker.
But what's
Rep.
what's the
Marcel for
problem?
on this, a second question on the amendment.
Thank you. Representative Carpenter,
Yes.
even though Mr. Renatza wasn't there, is it true that there was a representative there from the sheriff's office?
There was a representative.
And not
there.
only was he there, isn't it true that he spoke in favor of this very amendment that we've added amendments on the floor before that we didn't add in committee? Has that been your experience?
Well, you're absolutely correct, ma'am.
I just want to know if something was different about your amendment that you're adding on the floor, as we've done all day and all for months, than anybody else's. I was just a little confused, and I thought I remembered someone from the sheriff's office coming to the table and said that this is what they wanted to do. Is that accurate?
Yes, and he represented that agency.
And let me ask you one final question. Is it sometimes that an organization may vote for something, and that does not mean that every member has that same belief as the organization as a whole? Is that accurate?
We see it all the time in this chamber.
Okay, so an organization could vote for something, and one of the members may not even like it, but the majority rules. Is that accurate?
That's the democratic system.
Thank you very much, Representative Carpenter.
You're welcome.
Rep. Villio for a question on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Carpenter, you're aware that some people and organizations take a position on an amendment and not the bill. Is that correct?
Possibly.
Okay. And are you aware that, in fact, the Sheriff's Association takes a position in support of the amendment, but it does not take a position on your bill, and it does not support your bill? Are you aware of that?
I'm not too sure about that with this bill. I don't
Okay.
think it could happen with
Okay,
others.
well, did you know that I contacted Mike Renatza, and he does say that he supports the amendment, but that the Sheriff's Association does not support the bill and takes no position on the bill?
There is no one in the Sheriff's Association to say that they do not support this bill, not with whom I've spoken with.
I just advised you, and so thank you, Representative Carpenter. They do not support the bill. They take no position. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Rep. Lyons for a question on the amendment.
Rep. Carpenter, how long have you been in this body?
I'm sorry.
How long have you been in this body?
This more than 8 years, 9 years.
That's great. And since you've been in this body, you understand, and I'm going to use the word, the sanctity of where you at the well, when you bringing information to this body about being truthful and forthcoming. Do you understand that?
Absolutely.
So since you've been here in this time period, have you ever had to question whether a member comes down there not and telling the truth or being misleading?
Not since I've been here.
And since you've been doing this bill, which I sit in committee, oftentimes we do get people to come and provide information, but they don't take a position on the bill. Are you familiar with that?
Sure.
So when you were in committee and a gentleman from the association from the sheriffs came and spoke about the bill, they spoke about the fact that they've done some of this in the past. And you basically said to us on 5 occasions now that the Sheriff's Association helped you draft the amendment. Is that right?
That's correct.
So they helped you with an amendment because they wanted you to get that part correct. Is that correct?
That's right.
It doesn't mean that they are against your bill, because according to what I'm hearing now, that they're neutral. But they want you to get the information correct. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And it's your submission to this body today that you drafted this amendment with the help of the Sheriff's Association because they wanted you to get this right to present this bill. Whether or not they were for or against it wasn't the issue, but they wanted to make sure it was correct. Am I correct?
That is correct. That is not
So,
the issue.
thank you very much. So I just wanted to make sure I was understanding and you understood that when you make a statement in this building that your credibility is what you're on the line and your word is there. And if you say something to that effect, we should believe you. Is that correct?
Yes, my credibility is always on the line because I have no reason to say it otherwise.
Thank you very much, Ms. Carpenter. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, Representative Carpenter has offered up a set of amendments which Rep. Thomas has objected to. All those in favor of the amendment vote yea. All those opposed vote nay. Madam Clerk, please open machine. Members, vote your machine. Freeman, yea. Chasson, yea. Emerson, nay. Mellering, yea. Eccles, nay. Mellering, nay. Desatel, nay. Marcel? Davis, nay. The clerk will close the machine. We have 40 yeas, 57 nays, and the amendment fails. Back on the bill, Rep. Thomas for a question on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Carpenter, I believe you brought this bill last year, or a bill that's very similar. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And did it pass out of committee last year?
I am not sure, Representative Thomas.
Well, it did, because it came to this floor. Do you remember what happened when that bill that you proposed last year, when it came to the floor last year?
No, I do not. Why don't you tell me?
Well, it did not pass,
Okay.
and I'm certainly hoping that this one doesn't pass either.
And why is that?
Well, are you aware that the law says that you have to be, if you register to vote by mail or on the internet, that the very first time you vote, you must vote in person? Are you aware of that law?
I am very much aware of the law.
Okay, and
However-
is that the law that you're trying to change?
However, the law should not prevent a person who is qualified to vote from voting. And so in this
The law
instance,
should not prevent a person who is
they should
qualified?
not prevent a person who is qualified to vote.
So
In
so
this
are you saying
case-
we can just ignore the law?
If you will allow me, in this case, people find themselves in this situation. They are qualified people eligible to vote, and they're merely asking to vote because it's their first time voting. And this
Okay,
is
and
the
their
issue.
first time voting according to the law,
And they are registered.
and they're registered, and the very first time that they vote, the law says that they must vote in person. There are a couple of exceptions, and when I come to the well, I will read the law and read those exceptions.
We don't need you to
thank you,
read the
Mr.
law.
Speaker.
We know what it is. However,
Oh, I know what it is too, and I would like to share it with the body.
well, I'm not back
Thank you,
and
Mr.
forth with
Speaker.
This bill will allow persons who are incarcerated to vote for the first time if they are qualified, registered voters. And it's no different from those who are in college, away from their domicile, people who find themselves in the military. It falls in the same category.
Rep. Bayham for a question on the bill.
Thank you. Dr. Carpenter, I'm here in the back. Just a few very basic questions. I'm back of the chamber, not back by the speaker.
Okay, Rep. Carpenter has waived questions.
Okay,
Rep.
well-
Marcel for the floor on the bill.
Mr. Speaker and members, I think it's very disrespectful how they're handling Representative Carpenter today. Representative Carpenter presented a bill. She came to the committee. There was a representative there from the sheriff's office. Seems to me like they're trying to say that Representative Carpenter lied about something on her bill, and that's not true. If you don't want people to vote, then that's your right to vote against this bill. If you don't want them to vote when they're qualified electors and they are in prison for an extended period of time during voting, and they can take that mail to the mailroom, then vote no. But to sit up here and act like Representative Carpenter is lying is just disrespectful. It is very disrespectful, and we don't treat one another like this. And so I don't know why we would go across the street and drink and eat crawfish with anybody who has disrespected Representative Barbara Carpenter in this House. You have a right to vote how you want to vote, but what we're not going to stand for is you to disrespect one of our members. And so I rise in support of this bill because she presented it in the committee with the support of the sheriff's office on the amendment. And y'all keep trying to twist her words. That's what she said, and that's what she meant.
Rep. Marcel, would you take any questions? She waives questions. Rep. Thomas for the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to read to you from Revised Statute 18115. This is the bill that Representative Carter is wanting to amend. This bill says, this law says, any registered voter who has registered by mail and has not previously voted in the parish in which he is registered shall vote in accordance with one of the following: in person at any location where early voting is conducted in the parish in which he is registered to vote. B, in person at the precinct in which he is registered to vote. The provisions of this paragraph 1 of this subsection shall not apply in the case of the following: a person who is otherwise entitled to vote under the provisions of the Uniformed and Overseas Citizens Absentee Voting Act, that's a military person, or the Voting Accessibility for the Elderly and Handicapped Act. Any person who is otherwise entitled to vote and was approved by a parish board of election supervisors as being eligible to participate in the special program for handicapped voters shall be allowed to vote. Any person who is otherwise entitled to vote and who has submitted to the registrar of voters current proof of disability from a physician, optometrist, physician assistant, along with a certification from the physician, optometrist, physician assistant, or nurse practitioner, which indicates that by reason of the person's disability, the person is unable to appear in person either during early voting, or at the polling place on election day. And if the person submitted the proof of disability to the registrar by mail, who included in his submission to the registrar a copy of his Louisiana driver's license, his Louisiana Special Identification Card, or other generally recognized picture identification card that contains the name and signature of the person, or a form.
Rep. Willard, why do your eyes?
Hello. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to know if we had a time limit on how long somebody could read from a document.
15 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Rep. Thomas?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. A person who is a student at an institution for higher learning located outside of the registrant's parish of residence, when such student submits a copy of his student identification or fee bill showing the current enrollment with the application to vote by mail, so that's a college student. A person who appears in the office of the parish registrar of voters, where he is registered to vote, prior to the opening of the period for conducting early voting on the scheduled election, and establishes his identity. That's the law.
Rep. Thomas, will you take any questions? She waves. Rep. Villio for the floor on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, I had not intended to speak on this bill, but I am tired of the exaggerated behavior and the lectures. At no time did anyone intend to disrespect Representative Carpenter. In fact, I have great respect for her. I do not think at any time she intended to mislead this body But she in fact said the Louisiana Sheriff's Association supported the bill. They do not. They take no position. I have worked my entire career with the Sheriff's Association and the Louisiana District Attorneys Association. That is a long career. Unfortunately, I am older than most in this room. I know their process. I know every bill that they take a position on, and I know when they don't. And I knew they did not take a position on this bill. And I believe that this body has great respect for them, and I believe that when this body is told they support a bill, that this body tends to vote in favor of that. And I am here to tell you with great respect for Representative Carpenter, because I do not believe she at any time intended to mislead this body. The Sheriff's Association does not take a position on this bill, has not taken a position to support this bill. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Rep. Villio, will you take any questions? She waves. Rep. Bayham for the floor on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wish I would have had an opportunity to ask Dr. Carpenter some questions because I serve on the House and Governmental Affairs Committee, and we had some great information that was brought to us, some things I didn't know, and just for informational purposes, I'd like to share them with my colleagues as I didn't have an opportunity to ask questions. First, mail-by voting does happen in jail. I didn't realize that happened. That is something that does happen. Secondly, if being in jail in itself does not disqualify you from being an eligible voter, you could be pretrial, not make bail, and if you are arrested and you do make bail, you could go vote at your precinct, whether it be the first time you vote or not. But there's some, excellent information that was shared on this issue, and I appreciate the advocates on this bill for providing so much information to us as a member of the committee, and I just wanted to share that with my colleagues. Thank you.
Rep. Mandy Landry for the floor on the bill.
Real quick, so last year I had a bill about guns, and I'm pretty sure I came up here and said the NRA didn't oppose it, but I don't know, I might have said support because we do about 1,000 bills a year, but it's also accurate when we say they don't oppose it. It means they're letting it go through. And then 2 years ago, I had a marijuana bill, and I said the sheriffs don't oppose it. And, I didn't get anything like this from anyone, and it doesn't go unnoticed that this is about voting. I mean, this is going to affect a handful of people, young people who are excited to vote every year, but there's just been this focus on voting around the country that it just doesn't make any sense. So this is a situation where you have actual law enforcement involved in figuring out what's going on. And the implication is, I don't even know what the implication is. I don't even know how you could fake this. But I just want to point out that a lot of us say things like this, and to my knowledge or my memory, we have never faced anything like this before by saying someone doesn't oppose a bill. Thanks.
Sheriff Wiley.
Mr. Speaker and members, as you know, in another life, I was the sheriff for many, many years. And for some of those years, and it still continues to this day, at the Ascension Parish Jail, which probably has today between 400 and 500 inmates, if I would make a guess, it can hold almost 600. Every time we have early voting, every time, and for several years, for the eligible inmates who are there, who by law can vote, we facilitate their vote. We bring in, Representative Carpenter, we bring in the registrar. We work in concert with the registrar, and they literally bring in 1 or 2 or 3 workers, and we do it in a day room or in a classroom that's available at the jail, and they vote these people in person. Don't need witnesses. It's akin to an early voting satellite office. So I might offer, as we go back to our homes and talk about the importance of availing everybody the right to vote, and I concur with Representative Carpenter's intent here, is that we would maybe network and reach out to your registrars. They may groan, they may frown, but it is part of the right that we have to vote, and quite frankly, for those of us in charge, I submit that it's our responsibility to facilitate that. So that would be one option here. And that's all I want to just say, that this can be done. Now, if you're philosophically against it, that's one thing, but it can be done the right way, the consistent way, and I think if I were in your parish, I would make my registrar say no, all right? And I don't think that that person would do that if it's approached in the right way, in the safe way, and in concert with a participating and cooperative sheriff. No questions, just want to let you know that. Thank you.
Rep. Newell for the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. I appreciate Rep. Thomas coming in to read revised statute 181309. I'm sorry, whichever statute she read. That's the one that we're here to amend. And I'm glad she took the time to read that, because in committee, we also worked on revised statute 131809, which provides that a person may serve as an early voting commissioner only if he's received the certificate of instruction as provided in revised statute 18431A and has attended a course of instruction for early voting commissioners and received the certificate of instruction from a registrar of voters. A person to whom one or more of the following applies shall not serve as an early voting commissioner. The person is a candidate in the election. An immediate family member of the person is a candidate for election to public office in the election. The person is marked for assistance in voting in the precinct registrar or requires the use of the audio ballot in voting, and the person has been convicted of an election offense enumerated in Chapter 10 of this title. And HB 483 adds a provision to this section of the law that says that the person is required to register as a sex offender or child predator pursuant to revised statute 15542. My point in reading that is, our job is to come here, evaluate the law, and make changes, whether that be omissions, repeals, or additions to the law as it reads today. And that is what Representative Carpenter is intending to do. To add to, give me a copy of your bill, please. We're adding to that we're presenting the law also requires a registered voter who are registered by mail, someone who is being held in pre-detention hearing. These are not people who have been convicted of a felony. The Constitution provides in Article 1, Section 10, the right to vote. Every citizen of the state, upon reaching 18 years of age, shall have the right to register and vote, except that this may be suspended while a person is interdicted and judicially declared mentally incompetent or is under an order of imprisonment for conviction of a felony. Those are the people who are not allowed to vote, people who are in jail for conviction of a felony. If any of you had taken the time to read the documents that's in that nice, shiny blue folder on your desk, you would see there's a mail-in ballot form.
Rep. Walters, why do you rise?
Thank you, Speaker. I cannot hear.
Rep. Walters, I think almost every member is sitting down at their desk, so if y'all are on y'all's phones at y'all desk, maybe talk a little lower.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If you have read the general application for absentee mail, people who are incarcerated who are not under imprisonment for a conviction of a felony already have the right to vote. What Representative Carpenter is trying to do is allow for a person who is in pre-hearing detention, who is registered and qualified to vote, but is voting for the first time. Allow them to vote from the place that they're in detention by mail. That is all she is trying to do. I think each of us know that the right to vote is important. I think that's the premise of both of our parties. No matter Republican, Democrat, Independent, we all cherish the right to vote. And just because a person may have been detained for some reason, no conviction, just detained, they should not be denied the right to vote when there is no conviction. There's only a charge. And that is what Representative Carpenter is trying to do. Add to the law that is existing as to who is allowed to vote by mail. And it should be for someone that's first time voting who are in pre-detention, pre-hearing detention. Thank you, members and Mr. Speaker.
Rep. Brown, he waives. Rep. Carpenter, you have a right to close on your bill.
Members, I'm not asking you to do anything that's impossible. It is something that we feel is the right thing to do. And so I thank those of you who've gotten up here and spoken. And Representative Vilio, you are correct. I was referring to the amendment because it was drafted with the support of the Sheriff's Association. They didn't take a position on it, but that doesn't say that they're against it either. So we all are intelligent, we can read, and we can read the law. We've heard it over and over again, and so there are different parts. You pick what part you want to make it applicable to what you're trying to do. I'm just trying to follow what is right and allow these people for their first time voting, merely their first time. I could walk out here outside and accidentally do something, look like somebody that they're trying to find, and find myself end up incarcerated. Who knows? And so if it's my time to vote and I'm registered, I have that right. So all I do is ask you to look within yourselves and look at what is the law and look at what is right and allow these people an opportunity to vote. Thank you.
Rep. Carpenter moves final passage of the bill. Those in favor vote yea. Those opposed vote nay. Madam Clerk, please open machines. Members, vote your machines. Members, vote your machines. Members, are you through voting? Boyer, nay. Desatel, nay. Members, are you through voting? The clerk will close the machine. We have 38 yeas, 62 nays, and the bill fails to pass.